Afternoon, everybody. It is 2:15 on Thursday, October 22nd. This is the first podcast that I've recorded, and I'm excited about this. There's a lot going on in our world today. The race for the White House. We're in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic that seems to not want to go away. Sports, health, whatever seems to be uppermost on people's minds, that's what I want this podcast to be about. It's the Sabbath experience. I was thinking about this today on the drive-in, and in terms of the race for the White House, this presidential race between President Trump and Joe Biden, it's the same music, but it's got a different song title. It's the same rhythm, but it's different dance moves. Nothing has changed since 2016. The Democrats, led by Joe Biden, just like the Democrats, led by Hillary Clinton, continue to cater and focus on the 10 to 15% in this country. I'm not against the 10 or 15% in this country. I have zero issues with any group, organization, cause. But when you alienate, and I mean alienate, the 85 to 90%, as Clinton did in 2016, she lost. Just like Joe Biden will lose, because you don't alienate the 90%ers. And this goes back all the way to my newspaper days when I used to work in the newspaper industry, and I used to listen to editors and publishers who had never been reporters, had never been out on the streets and in the communities, and didn't know what people wanted. And they were constantly talking about, how do we reach the 10%? My comment was always, you don't reach the 10% if it means alienating or upsetting the 90%ers. And I was right every single time. You're not going to please everybody. This isn't Disney. This isn't the magical fairyland. This is life, where sometimes people are going to get upset and sometimes people aren't going to be happy. But when you have the core of this country who are hardworking, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens, and you turn your back on them to worry about the 10%ers, you're in trouble. That's one of the reasons why the newspaper industry is where it's at We can argue about online. We could argue about social media. We could argue about 24/7 news coverage. But one of the reasons that newspapers are flat on their backs is because the mentality that I dealt with at the newspapers that I worked at that wanted us to alienate and turn our backs on the 90 percenters to go after the 10 percenters. Little by little, these people seeped in to the newspaper industry and became editors and publishers. And then it seeped into the education system at the university level. And frankly, we had a bunch of Democratic liberals that were teaching our kids at the university level, and they were teaching their agendas, and they were raising and educating these journalists and these reporters that we now see across this country. And they were influenced by these liberal leftist professors. And then they became reporters and editors and publishers. And that's how the media changed. Again, this is the Sabbath Experience, podcast number 1. So I started to think about this today. And I said, this is the same formula in 2020 that we saw 4 years ago. We're worried about this movement and this group and that group. You can't satisfy everybody. And you don't turn your back on the hard-working bread and butter people to try to win over the 10 percenters. The 10 percenters are not going to make this country float. The 10 percenters were not going to make the newspaper industry flourish. What was going to make the newspaper industry flourish was good, strong, local, unbiased, objective news. Whether it's sports or news, it didn't matter. And it's the same thing today. The 10 percenters are not going to make this country float. The 10 percenters are not what are going to make this country continue to be the greatest in the world. It's the 90 percenters. And the 90 percenters showed up in droves in 2016. And Trump won. And the 90 percenters are going to show up again in 2020 in droves. And Trump's going to win again. And the Democrats can't figure out why. And I don't know why they can't figure out why, because it's right in front of their face. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, everything that we hold dearly, they want to take away. They being the Democrats, led by Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. They've already liberalized the school system at both the elementary, the high school, the college, university level. They want to liberalize everything else. Defunding the police. Getting rid of prisons. Letting people go because the prisons are overcrowded. Sanctuary cities. Illegal aliens. Again, I have absolutely nothing against somebody that wants to come to this country from another for the opportunities that we have. This is what this country was founded on. It's what my great-grandparents did when they came over from Italy. But they did it the right way. They did it by becoming citizens and getting gainful employment and paying taxes. And most importantly, they did it with an understanding of the laws and the rules in this country. And now what we have is a large majority of people who are in this country illegally. We don't call them illegal aliens just for the heck of it. They're illegal because they're undocumented, because they don't pay taxes, because they're not registered voters, because they don't follow our laws and our rules. If I go over to your house and you have a set of rules and you tell me I have to take my shoes off and I come into your front door, I got two options. I either abide by your rules and take my shoes off, or I leave and go back home. I would never come to your house and your first rule is that you got to take your shoes off and I just continue to walk through your house. It's disrespectful. But this is what goes on in this country nowadays. It's disrespectful. You come over here and you have no intentions of following our rules. You have no intentions of following our laws. And then you want to hide behind the blanket of that flag, the blanket that is the Constitution, the blanket that is the Bill of Rights. You want to hide behind that. And if the Democrats are in charge of the government, they're going to let you hide behind it. Sanctuary cities, where local law enforcement has no jurisdiction whatsoever. It's like people seeking asylums in a church, and they're free from all ramifications. That's what a sanctuary city is. That's what cities like Chicago, Seattle, San Francisco, Baltimore, cities like this, that's what they're becoming. Half past the hour, Thursday, October 22nd. Steve's Sabbath Experience, podcast number 1.